Summary of Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. John has heard so often that he will become a preacher like his father, Gabriel, that he has come to believe it himself. In fact, John's oldest memories are of his family and the Temple of the Fire Baptized, where they went to church. The Pentecostal church in Harlem, which is on a filthy and sinful block, is a sharp contrast to the bad things going on around it. Every Sunday, John and his family pass sinners on the way to church. People coming out of whiskey joints and blues clubs represent sex and vice, and John sees them as a steady warning to stay on the right road. John hasn't always taken his faith and religious education with the utmost seriousness and dedication. But now that he's getting close to his 14th birthday, both his family and his congregation are putting more and more pressure on him to accept the Lord and give up his sins at the foot of the church altar, also called the threshing floor, and be saved. John finds it hard to keep his mind on the Lord, though. His life at home is difficult and often stressful. He has 3 brothers, his mother, Elizabeth, is pregnant again, and his father is mean and abusive. There is also Alicia. John's Sunday school teacher is a young, good-looking preacher named Elisha. John is often taken aback by Elisha's lean body and admires how he looks in his suit. John is starting to learn about sex. He and his brother, Roy, watch sinners have sex in an empty building. John is also starting to learn about his own sexuality. John has recently masturbated in the school bathroom, even though he has been told it is wrong. When he did it, he thought of boys. John is sure that he is a sinner, which makes it even more important for him to be redeemed and saved. When John wakes up the morning after his mistake in the school bathroom, which is also his 14th birthday, he feels like he will be bound in hell for 1,000 years. On the night of John's birthday, he goes to the Temple of the Fire Baptized to clean the church before the stay service, where the churchgoers, or saints, gather to pray and wait for the Lord's rescue. Not long after that, Alicia will come to help John. As the two get the church ready, the saints start to arrive, including Gabriel, Elizabeth, and Florence, Gabriel's sister. Alicia starts the service by playing the piano, and then everyone sings together. John sings, but he doesn't want to, and he won't clap. He knows that the music moves the spirits of the saints, but John feels like he has no right to sing or rejoice. John thinks that God and faith are the same thing as his violent father. John can't bow before the throne of grace without first kneeling to his father, but he won't do that. Florence has trouble singing with the saints as well. She has never been inside this church before, and she hasn't been inside any church in a long time. At 60 years old, Florence hasn't turned to God because of her faith, but because of her failing health and fear. She remembers Gabriel's favorite saying, "Set thy house in order, for thou shalt die and not live," and she wants to set her house in order before she goes. Florence doesn't know how to pray because she has been away from God for so long. So, she sings the only hymn she knows, which is a song she remembers her mother, Rachel, singing when she was a kid. Gabriel is happy to see his sister come to God, but not because he is happy to see her happy in the Lord. If Florence is in church, it means that she is suffering, and Gabriel feels a strange and cruel happiness because of this. Gabriel has always made Florence angry. As a child, he was treated better than other kids because he was a boy who would grow up to be a man. He got better food, new clothes, and an education. The way they were treated made sense to their mother. Gabriel needed these things more than Florence did, even though he often wasted his rights. This was because Florence would likely grow up and marry someone. Gabriel was a troublemaker as a child, and as a teen and young adult, he drank and slept around. Rachel would beat him to get him to go to God, and then she would pray over his hurt body. By the time he was saved, Florence had already left their cabin in the south and moved to the north. Florence hates all men, not just Gabriel. She even didn't like Frank, her own husband. Florence said that Frank was determined to live and die a common end, and after 10 years of fighting, he finally left her. He lived with another woman in the town for a while, and then he died during World War I. Frank has been dead for almost 20 years. Florence thinks it was her great mistake to love him so bitterly, and it looks like she will die alone. Gabriel thinks about his past and how God saved him as the crowd sings. It took him a while to find the Lord, but once he did, he never wanted to leave. At age 21, he started teaching, and that same year, he married Deborah, a faithful and kind woman. Gabriel hoped that Mary and Joseph, in their holy marriage bed, would start a royal line of people who would serve the Lord well. Deborah, on the other hand, died childless, and Gabriel had a bastard son with Esther, a local woman he thought was a harlot. Esther died soon after she gave birth, and her parents raised her son, Royal. Gabriel grew apart from his son as he grew up. Royal was killed in Chicago when he was a young man. Gabriel says that he's sorry for cheating on his wife and how he treated Esther and Royal, and the Lord has forgiven him. Gabriel's name is written in the book of life, he says, and he will live forever in praise with the Lord. While Gabriel thinks about his past, the Spirit takes John and leads him to the threshing floor. When Elizabeth hears John cry, she remembers when he was born and when John's real father, Richard, died. Elizabeth and Richard never got married, and Richard killed himself before John was born, leaving Elizabeth alone to take care of her own bastard son. When she met Gabriel, he said he would love John like his own, but he hasn't kept his word. He is mean to all of their children, but especially to John, and Elizabeth is sure that both she and John are being punished for her sin. She is proud to see John give himself to the Lord on the threshing floor. This is how he lets God and his saved know about his sins. After his spiritual rebirth, John is filled with an inexplicable joy, even though he knows that this new holy road is a hard and narrow way up a steep and dangerous peak full of sin and temptation. John is still set on this road, and as he and his family leave the church and walk into the bright morning light, he is ready for the task. John says, "I'm coming," or "I'm on my way."
About the author. Baldwin was born to Emma Berties Jones at Harlem Hospital in 1924. Jones left about the author. Baldwin's drug user father before Baldwin was born and married Baldwin's preacher father, David Baldwin. They had 8 more kids together, and Baldwin's stepfather also had a son from his first marriage. David Baldwin was mean and cruel, just like Gabriel is to John in Go Tell It on the Mountain. He died of tuberculosis when Baldwin was still young, before he turned 20. Baldwin went to New York City's public school 24 and started writing when he was young. He wrote a play that was put on by the students, wrote for the school newspaper, and is even thought to have written the school song. Baldwin was supposed to become a priest like his father, just like John. However, he thought Christianity was racist and full of hypocrisy, so he left organized religion when he was a teenager. By 1948, Baldwin had already been bothered by the cops because of his race. When a New York City restaurant refused to serve him because he was black, he went to France to get away from the racism in America. Baldwin kept writing while he was living in Paris. In 1953, he released his first novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain. 2 years later, he published Notes of a Native Son, a book of articles that was partly based on Richard Wright's novel Native Son. Baldwin got a Guggenheim Fellowship in 1954, but his third book, Giovanni's Room, was turned down by publishers because it was about homosexuality. The book didn't come out until 1956. Baldwin was involved in the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s and was close friends with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Jr. He agreed to write a script about the life of Malcolm X, but after Martin Luther King, Jr. was killed in 1968, Baldwin quit the project and went back to France. He kept writing into the 1970s and 1980s, and he often wrote about racism and homophobia. Baldwin became a professor of literature and African American studies at the Five College Network in Amherst, Massachusetts, in 1983. In 1986, French President Mitterrand gave him France's greatest award, the Commandeur de la Légion d'honneur. Baldwin died in 1987 at his home in St. Paul-de-Vence, France. He had stomach cancer. He is buried at Hartsdale, New York's Ferncliff Cemetery.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.